How hard did you push it? Till I black out? Yes. Numerous times, yes.
What's happening, Municipals? This is your boy Big C. We have Troy A. Knight, Paximilian, Ashton, and a good walk spoiled Mason. How's it going, my man?
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much for having me on. Really excited to talk about my home state, Minnesota, with you guys tonight.
We are really excited. I mean, we came off of that on a full-on high. I think every single one of us loved your town, especially the public golf in the Twin Cities. Fell in love with Target Field. Twins game, even though we had to watch the absolute dog shit Rockies, we were really excited to watch a good Twins win while we were in town. But that field, I have to tell you, top 5 baseball stadiums I've been to in my life. That place was awesome.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. It's brand new. Well, relatively new, I guess, compared to the rest of the league. And yeah, glad you guys enjoyed it. Some awesome views of the skyline down there and just a really cool part of town over there as well.
Really, really cool. Well, let's go around the table here. Troy, how you doing, buddy? Oh, we got you on mute.
I'm doing good. I'm staying out of trouble, so except for apparently muting my microphone.
It happens. It happens to the best of us. Ashton can attest. I've done it plenty of times, and that's what we have Pax for to edit that. So that. Well, speaking of Pax, producer Pax, how's it going, buddy?
It's going good. It's going good. Yeah, I might just keep that in there. It was pretty good content, but no, doing good. Got the baby to sleep. Been exploring the city a little bit. Went up to Seattle this past weekend. It's actually supposed to be pretty hot in the Pacific Northwest, so kind of looking forward to that.
Good old 85. You know, we're gonna be toasting up here. It's, you know, we're roasting at 85.
True.
Ashton, how's it going down there in the Bay? I know it's been a little chillier down there.
Yeah, it's been good. The traffic, like, I'm in kind of a weird headspace today because it was Pride, which is delightful, but I kind of got jammed on traffic kind of multiple different ways. So, like this morning, I had a golf lesson this morning. It was great, but on the way home, I'm just sort of driving along because there's all these barriers, and I pull over to look at the cop, and I was like, I just, me being me, I'm like, officer, I like live here. Like, how do I get home? Like, I'm trying to go that way, and he's like, oh, you have to go all the way down. And then, yeah, like I said, we had a engagement party this evening, and it took us, for context, Mason, Palo Alto on a Sunday probably should take like 45 minutes. It took us an hour and 45 minutes to get down there. Mainly because there's 2 roads currently going in and out of San Francisco for one of the biggest days of the year. So I spent like 5 hours in my car, but shout out to my golf coach. I learned how to make a turn for like the first time in my life today in my golf lesson. My body hurts from actually like turning my back to the target, but I'm excited about my golf game. So yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It feels good to make a turn. So that's where I'm at.
Well, after watching you play Stone Ridge, I don't think you needed to go see him. I mean, you kind of tore that course freaking apart, which we'll start there because I saw Mason's expression when I said that he tore Mason from the 1-ups. He went out there and shot a 76 on his first go at Stone Ridge. I mean, we all pretty much gave up on 15. We got to 13, and I think all of us were like, "This hole's just dumb. Like this hole is so hard and impossible."
You guys whipped yourself into a frenzy on that hole.
All of us were so upset.
Pitchforks and everything.
Oh, we were so upset on 13. I don't know when the last time you played Stone Ridge, but it's that par 4 uphill dogleg. Dude, that hole was so hard. It was so hard. And if you don't carry the ball like 260, I mean, you're not getting it over and up there to be able to make a decent play at it.
Did you have a downwind up in your face? Oh, okay. No, that's tough. I mean, you just play out to the left and take your medicine. But like, I've played it plenty of times. I don't want to, poo-poo you guys, but like, I've had it downwind and you're hitting 3 woods over the green there. So like, it's a very versatile hole. I could understand the hate. I mean, if you're talking holes that stink out there, I think 12 is atrocious. Um, but I'd be curious to hear more about what you guys thought. I know 76 first time, that's very impressive, especially not seeing it. Um, I recommended it to you guys because I think it's like a pretty like proper championship test, and it's also like a very unique course regionally. So curious what your guys' thoughts are on it overall and your experience out there.
Let's start with Roasty Boy Troy, because I think he had the hottest takes when it came to Stone Ridge, and then we'll go into Ashton because he had the most positive look on Stone Ridge. So we'll go one.
If I shot 76 my first time, I'd be pretty pumped about it too.
I think that's why we were saucy and he wasn't. But let's start with Troy.
I thought the front nine was really good. I really enjoyed the front nine. And then, the front 8, because that weird changeover from 8 to 9 was super awkward. And then I thought 9 was forgettable at best. But 10 and 11 were actually super fun. And then from 12, basically the rest of the way, I was just like, none of it made any sense. And I just thought it was silly. Like that's the best word I could think of, is like, it was just silly golf. What was it? It was, the 13 was the drivable par 4. The 14, that par 3 was just weird, especially like with a 30 mile an hour wind, like
it directly in our
quartering.
face.
Yeah. I mean, it was at like friggin' 10:30 from us. So it was like, cool. I play a cut into what was it? 215 or something that day. Like, and, so we're playing like 3 woods into a par 3, playing a cut, and then both packs, and I just eject right. And, that was frustrating. And then I really didn't like that next par 4 where you drive down the hill, because honestly, I didn't think it was like the worst hole out there. I just thought it was borderline dangerous because like Ashton almost got murked by those guys behind us. Like, the dude flew a ball, 10 feet from you, Ashton, because you literally like drive it down into that goalie and no one can see you. And if you have a bunch of like aggressive teenagers behind you that can hit it pretty far, they're just like, well, we're just going to hit. And sure enough, like, so I was a little hot after that one, to say the least. So I just, I thought the back nine was silly. Maybe I could go out there and play it again, and if it wasn't blowing 30 miles an hour, I would have a different opinion. But I really did enjoy the front 8. I thought those were they were really like exceptional holes, and then the back it just didn't make any sense. So Ashton, now you can praise it as much as you want.
No, I mean, honestly, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I think it's one thing I think we always talk about and think about is there's very few courses we play where it's very hard to like divorce score from like your take on a course. I think the only place I've been able to do that really is like a Pasta Tiempo, where it's like, cool, I shot 88, but like I just want to go run back to the first tee and do it again, right? I'm with you. I think that I'm kind of stealing your take, but you didn't say it right there. But like the front that first piece of the property felt like, I think we said it was sort of like, I've not played there, but I've seen it enough. Minnesota Chambers Bay, like truly, like that's like you said that, and I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Very much,
right?
Very much.
Even with that, though, I think to your point, some holes that I think are like overly manufactured, like the second par 5. Like, that's just a really hard hole. Like, I remember I hit like, it demanded like, for me as a lefty, a draw 3 wood, a well-executed 5 iron, and then an 8 iron to an elevated green with like a death bunker. It just like is a very exacting golf course. And so I think that like, while I did enjoy it, I mean, I think that I very much agree with what we were talking about, where that's a course I'd love to play once a month. I think for you, Troy, it's less, because I understand why, but like I sort of like those courses where it's like, cool, like I'm gonna like have my coffee, get prepared, and like I'm gonna go and really have a true analysis of like what my golf game is. Right, that doesn't mean it's a good course. Right, I think to your point, there is a lot of overly manufactured stuff. There's also some amazing holes out there, some holes that I really, really liked. But I think the other thing too is I've thought more about it. We kind of talked about this at the end. It makes a little more sense to me knowing that Bobby Weed was sort of a disciple of Pete Dye. It makes a little more sense when you think about it from that sense, where like I think what Pete Dye is trying to do a lot of is, you know, you don't exactly know where you're going, kind of like Mason, like you said, like you haven't seen it before, you're not comfortable, you're not sure where to hit it. And I think that could be really frustrating when you just show up to a place once, right? So I think the interesting thing is like, I'm super happy that Mason told us to play it on our trip. I think where we netted out, Troy, is like, if you're like a 9 handicap who like the whole idea of this trip is like go and have fun with your buddies, I don't think I would play Stone Ridge. I enjoyed it, right? As like a low single digit who likes getting tested, who hits, to your point, Big, has the distance prerequisite to like hit the shots. Sure. But I think where I actually agree with you, Troy, more than anything, and I think we said this in the car, my issue is I walked off that course being like, I enjoyed it, I played well, but like, who is this course actually for, right? Because if you want to play the game of who flies at 280 and is a 3 handicap, who actually pulls into that parking lot, it's not many people, right? And we need a lot more places like Keller around the world that are like open and friendly and, you know, not this exacting punch in the face. So I think Stone Ridge like it serves a purpose, especially in the Minnesota market where there are so many other accessible courses. But I think as I've thought more about it, like it doesn't maybe serve the best purpose over, like in a vacuum, it doesn't really serve a purpose at all. Unless, you know, I don't know, Mason, you can add some color where it's like maybe the Minnesota Golf Association's like, we're playing the back tees, best amateurs in Minnesota. We're going to like just trick this place out. But I think it's actually okay to exist in Minnesota because there's so many places like, you know, like a Keller that, you know, if you want to kind of, you know, go to the yin to the yang, it's like, cool. Well, if you want to go have a great time, go have Keller. But if you fall into this very small bucket, then I think Stone Ridge is great. But there's a lot of caveats that make it great, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with a lot of that. Especially, I can attest to the once a month. I'm like good once a year out there. It's just good to like go get tested out there, get your teeth kicked in, or feel really good about yourself. In terms of like market that it serves, I'm sure you guys noticed it's just like very unique from a lot of Minnesota. We just have like a lot of parkland, kind of like wetter golf courses, and this one's just like very different. And then also recently, a university in St. Paul, St. Thomas, became D1, and this is where they play out of. So, you know, they got USGA events here. They're hosting college events out here. So, more to your point, it's like a proper test. Like it's hard.
It reminded me of La P, like La Prisma, but I just feel like La P is a more complete golf course. So, like, I'm kind of like with Mason. I think I would play it once a year. I think it was a little pricey just compared to the other options around there. And I feel like a lot of that was like, cool, you have a nice clubhouse. Like it, you know, but it, you know, the rest of it I thought was okay. Like the conditions were decent, but yeah, I think I could do once a year, you know, especially like if somebody really wanted to play it, but I probably wouldn't go out of my way. I could loop Braemar and Keller every week, you know, and I feel like I would have enough variety. And then that, like I could kind of sprinkle that in every once in a while.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing for me is that, you know, I actually really enjoyed it. I mean, that's why I compared it to Chambers, because you do really get that test that, you know, you could tell USGA, you know, events and D1 programs are going to play that course and they're going to be tested, and they should at that level of play. But if I lived in the Twin Cities, and Mason does, you know, Keller and Braemore by far would be my go-to for my everyday, you know, place to practice, hang out, play golf. I mean, those are basically the epitome of what you want out of. And you know what? I'm going to even include Chaska. I think that course for that area out there. I think it's a more challenging course than Braemar and Keller are. I mean, Chaska was definitely not an easy course to play, but it represents the community in such a good way that, you know, I think if I lived on that side of town, I wouldn't have a problem making that my local track as well. And I wish we were able to get out to the Loop, but they hit us up while we were driving away from Chaska. Didn't get to make it out there, but what's kind of, you know, leading into that, you know, Keller was kind of the place you were most excited for us to play. What were your main reasons there, Mason, for really pushing hard? If you're going to play anywhere, Keller is the place.
There's a lot of reasons. I think first and foremost, I don't know if this is a hot take or if this is like way over the top, but I truly think like this might be one of the best values in the country. You guys played it more recently than me. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's like $50 to walk. Like it's kind of insane how affordable it is. And it's just like a great like model of what municipal golf can be owned. So it's owned by the county. $50 to walk. I'm sure the conditions were pretty good to you guys. They always are. Architecturally, there's some really unique stuff out there just because it is a very old course. And then also there's just like a little history tied to it. It used to be the staple host for the St. Paul Open, which is a former PGA Tour stop. So you go in the clubhouse, see pictures of Arnold Palmer playing it, stuff like that. So, and then I also love it too, being a low handicap, just thinking my way around there. The more I play it, I feel like the more strategic I see like the holes developing, like different angles depending where the pin is, things like that. And if anyone, like I said, most recommended, anyone who's been like my website, I just rave about this place. It's always like top of mind for public golf in Minnesota. To kind of back up to Stone Ridge, it's kind of like for a lot of people, if you're leaving the metro, you're driving east. So to get to Stone Ridge, you're driving by Keller. And so it's like, would you rather play Keller twice or play Stone Ridge once? Because that's basically what the prices amount to. A little bit of rambling there. This is the one I'm very curious about how you guys liked it. So I'm opening it up to all of you guys.
I think between Keller and Braemar, they were 1 and 2 for all of us. For me, Keller was by far number one. And for me, it would be, I think both courses have their positives. The conditions on both courses were immaculate. I would say the one thing that I leaned on towards Keller was the people, the atmosphere, and then the amenities at Keller. I mean, cost to what you get out there, like you said, I think it's $50 walking. It's like $65 with a cart if you don't want to walk. Where Braemar, we played a twilight round and we rode. And I think it was like 80 something dollars.
Something like that, yep.
So it was, you know, for a twilight round at that price, I was definitely would lean towards Keller. If I had to just cost to what you get, I think you're getting more bang for your buck at Keller. And you know, I think the prestige behind it and, you know, the stories that we got to hear about the county investing in the product and what they have received back from it, and not only financially, but through the community and the community that they've created at Keller, where they have a wait list for the women's and men's club. You can't even get into it because there's so many people out there. They're hosting junior tournaments left and right, junior clinics. Also, the general manager out there works 7 days a week and now is going to be running 2 courses. The value you get out there, the people that are running it, I mean, I've never seen a tighter ship ran at a public course. I mean, they have that place dialed to a T. I mean, the pace of play to the conditions, you know, the agronomy team, it's unmatched. You know, I don't think there's not a lot of courses I've played in my life at that price point that have ever matched up to that golf course. Pax, you haven't talked much. What's your thoughts on Keller?
I really liked Keller. I don't know. I definitely would put it. Me personally, I would put it number 2 to Braemar. I think that's just because, I mean, I've said it on the pod before, but I love natural amphitheater courses. I love courses that kind of you can see everything and it's kind of in front of you, but also at the same time, it's like obviously really gorgeous to look at. I think for Keller, why I really loved playing there is just the history. And I loved how we learned how invested the community is into the golf course. I think what was really cool is that I think we were playing behind like a family of 4. I think it was like a mom, a dad, and 2 kids. Mm-hmm. And usually out here in the Pacific Northwest, like you're stuck behind those guys. Like you'll like it's a long day. It's like 6 hours, 7 hours. Over there, they were rolling. Like I don't remember waiting at all. I think they must have like played, like picked balls up every once in a while. But I mean, from the shots that I do remember, kind of like glancing forward, they were all, pretty, playing pretty well. And I think that's just a testament to like, it's in one of the interviews we had. I don't know if it was with the general manager at Keller, but it might've been somewhere else, but it was like Minnesota as a whole creates golfers instead of finds them. And I think that's, I don't know, it's really cool because like all the places we went to was like more of a community. Braemar was definitely a big eye-opening because I mean we kind of pulled into the parking lot and then you see like 200 stalls of driving range, of people on the range, and like the whole course is kind of packed, but it's not slow. Like it wasn't a slow day at Braemar, and I felt the exact same way at Keller. Yeah, and I don't know. I think that's really cool that they appreciate golf, but at the same time, people kind of hang around the clubhouse and they kind of make golf a part of their life rather than kind of just showing up to a golf course and saying, okay, yeah, you're teeing off here, and everyone in the pro shop doesn't really want you there. I think Keller did a really good job in kind of capturing the history of everything and kind of keeping the traditions of, telling their story. And like, PGA Tour events were here, and it's a very historical course. And I think there's a lot of quirky holes, like number 4. I think we all went over the green, but I really enjoyed 4. I thought it was, I don't know, just a really quirky hole. And I don't know, kind of looping everything back. I feel like that kind of what gets people coming back for more. And it's really cool that they've created this whole community that really loves golf and appreciates it for what it is.
Was the community aspect of it, and I love that take that we got in that interview was that Minneapolis or Minnesota creates golfers instead of trying to find them. I think that was a really big thing because they put a lot of effort into the youth. They put a lot of effort into their men's clubs and women's clubs. And the one thing I want to ask you, Mason, before I get to Ashton and Troy here is women golfers in Minnesota. A lot of them. I love to see it. For us, Ashton is getting his fiance into golf, and she has been very gung-ho getting into it. She's really become a diehard golfer now. But I'm going to tell you right now, like I could play 30 rounds in a year and probably see 5 women on the golf course within an entire year on the West Coast. Like, what do you think thrives the women golfers in Minnesota? Because there's a lot more than we see on the West Coast. All 4 of us would say the same thing.
Sure. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess just being from here, that's just like something that is like natural to me. I've never like once thought like, oh, this is like out of the ordinary. But yeah, no, there are I would say a lot more women players, like you noted, when the women's league Keller's full. I know a lot of other places where it's full. My mom and dad were trying to play at a local course where I'm from, and they can't even get in those leagues as well. And I don't know. I think maybe a part of it, this is me totally guessing, part of it might just be like Minnesota has a very big outdoor culture. We're like stuck inside for 6 months a year, where you play hockey or whatever, and it's cold. And so like when summer rolls around, like, a lot of offices do summer hours where they're closed after Friday at noon or whatever, and people go up to their cabins and fish, or they're just getting outdoors. And so I think there's just a lot of women looking for activities, and golf just kind of happens to be one of them. Yeah, quick shout out. There's a lot of just great women golfers in our state. We got Kate Smith. She works with Ground Under Repair logo design, and she's also on the Epson tour right now. There's a sophomore at the University of Minnesota. Her name is Isabella McCauley. The course I grew up caddying at, went and watched her qualify for the U.S. Open when she was 16. So she could be, a stud. She was at nationals this past year as an individual. And then also Olivia Hyrick, just taking names in the mid-ams around here for women. I think she qualified for the U.S. women's floorball this year. And she's responsible for all the Sand Valley logos. So yeah, a lot of great women golfers in Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, you guys even have a lot of golf companies that kind of blossom out there. I know Swanee is based out there.
Yep.
Second Swing is also based out of Minnesota. So like, the golf scene is incredible out there, and we got to see it firsthand, and we were heavily impressed. But let's get back to Keller and Ashton. Your takes on Keller. Where was it? Top 1, 2 for you? I think we all had it 1 or 2 for us.
Yeah, it was clearly number 1 for me. I'll give a caveat to the listeners. I didn't play Braemar, so take that with a grain of salt. Y'all had amazing things to say, and I'll be back in Minnesota in 10 days, and I'm literally just driving to Sand Valley, so I'll have to get some tips from you, Mason. But yeah, I thought it was Keller, and I will be concise, but I'll kind of add a couple additional thoughts. One thing that's kind of very practical, I really appreciated the emphasis on the nature preserves, but I appreciated that the nature preserves, it wasn't done in a performative way. And I'll explain what I mean. For people in the Bay Area, if you've played Kalipe Preserve, I really like Kalipe as a golf course. It's another like really exacting test. The hard part is they weren't, in my personal opinion, they weren't very thoughtful about what they designated as preserved land. And because it's preserved land, there's limitations on what they can do. So as more time goes by at Kalipe, and trees are kind of growing over and there's all these areas, Kalipe has turned into a place that is like, I don't think there's any out of bounds, but Kalipe is just unbelievably penal because there's all of these areas that you can't even look for your ball in. And there's just times where it's like, why is this like you just look around and you're not entirely sure why this area is a preserved area. It's great that exists, but it does not come across as thoughtful. It kind of comes across as really scattershot. And when we were talking to the staff, I remember they were talking about how for the superintendent, a big focus was these preserved areas where balls really weren't going to go. And I think to me, by far my favorite stretch of the course, 10 is the par 5, right? Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
10 and 11 blew my mind just because I thought 10 was a really handsome hole. But for example, when you're hitting that shot in, you've got, I hit a decent drive. You have 200 yards in, you've got water left. And then there's kind of this back mound where there's all this reserved area where I guess in theory you could Icarito and blast it back there. But that's if you hit it back there, the ball, cool, man, you need to kind of move along. It just felt like there was a lot of preserved area, which is, as we all know, good for nature. It's good for maintenance issues. You don't have to mow it. And it was very thoughtful in how they did that. And that's something that like aesthetically I really appreciated. And the biggest thing to me, I think we're largely going to say the same thing, is like I think what I've realized as I've gotten older is the thing that I dislike most in the world. I don't care if it's golf or not. I really hate apathy. Um, like I'm very vocal. Like I'm one of those people. Like you'll never really find. You know, sometimes if it's like, do you want Chinese food or pizza? I'm like, yeah, whatever. But if it actually matters, someone's like, hey, do you want to go skiing? I'm like, no, I don't. I don't. Straight up, no. I just really appreciate when a place they care. And I think the thing that really bums me out about the Bay Area golf scene, or really I'll specifically kind of target the city of San Francisco, which I hope that, you know, hopefully what we're going to create as a team here will help wake them up a little bit, is for the city of San Francisco. And I think Troy, you know, there's a lot of other areas where this is true as well. They charge
Let's just
you
say all of California.
yeah, whether it's 40, 50, $60, it doesn't matter. It's the cash register keeps going, and because that keeps going, they just kind of like use that as an excuse to just, well, clearly something's working. And it's like, no, we just love golf. Like this isn't working. It's just like we just love to play golf. And like the fact that we continue to show up at 9:12 and 10:15 and 11:16 has nothing to do with what you're doing or not doing. It's just that we want to play. And Keller was a place that like everything from the staff to the clubhouse to the renovation or restoration, whatever you want to call it, it just was a place that deeply showed that they cared. Mason, to your point, cared about the history, cared about the present, cared about the future, cared about the turf grass management, cared about the nature, cared about the pace of play, cared about a value. And that just makes me like, I love golf, but like, I just love when a place like is aggressively going to lean into like giving a shit about something. And the thing I think about Keller is I felt that. And this is not meant to drive by shoot the other places, you know, to drive by Stone Ridge, but like at Stone Ridge it was very like, you're at 10 o'clock, here's some teas and like go play. Um, which isn't a good or bad thing. It was just, that's the experience I have where it's like, hello, we're at the 10 o'clock group and you go and play. And that's the extent of the interaction, where everybody at Keller, I think, made us feel seen. But it wasn't just us because we were there. I think that, like, I imagine, Jason, that's how you feel, whether it's Tuesday at 9 o'clock or Saturday at 4 o'clock. It's a place that just like deeply cares about everything. And then by the way, the golf course also absolutely rules. Like that's such a fantastic combination. And that to me is what it's all about. So like the fact that that is the foundation that kind of the Minnesota public golf scene is built on. It's like, yeah, like I don't know where else you would go because it checks off every box. And I loved it. I really, really loved it. So that was I'm sure Braemar was great, but it's hard to imagine when you combine all those things, not just the golf course, the community center, and just the fact that like people care about that place. We just have so much apathy for kind of California public golf is just so, and Atlanta public golf too is just, it's so hand wavy. It's just really nice to be at a place that they care. So those were kind of my feelings.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off of that. And like Keller and Braemar were 1A and 1B. Keller was 1A. I mean, you know, it edged it out. But like to piggyback off of your point about apathy, what I thought was interesting is like a week before that, I had played Wilson down here in LA, and I think we paid $46 to walk or whatever, and like half of it was dead. It's boring. It's overgrown. All the greens are just circles because everything is just grown in, you know, whatever. But what's interesting with Keller is like if you think about like the supply and demand, you know, obviously down here in LA, same thing like in San Francisco, right? You have a supply and a huge demand, and so they don't care. But then you think about like Minnesota, Minneapolis, Twin Cities area. So like you obviously have a big demand because there's a short season, but at the same time, like they're giving you a crazy value that was what 30% less than Braemar. Yet I thought that they treated it like it was 30% more of a green fee than Braemar. And just in terms of like their attitudes, their hospitality, like, yeah, I mean, even the people in the bar, like we walked in and they were just happy to see us and they had no idea who we were. Like they couldn't have cared less and they were just welcoming. And then, and then Mark came in and kind of told them and they were like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, cool. But they were just genuinely happy. And yeah, I think that is like a big reason why it was number one, is like from top to bottom, everybody cared there. They leaned on their history. The place has had two freaking majors. Like it's had two PGAs. Ben Hogan hates one of the holes. He peed on a tree. Like the dude, like it's a big deal golf course. It kind of got outgrown. It's never, like, PGA is never going to go back there. PGA tournament's never going to go back there, let alone a major. But it definitely felt important, and it felt like it had bones that were thought out. I mean, what other course do you have a centerline bunker and two trees that are in the middle of your shot? Like you have four and what was it, 17, where the tree is basically in the middle of the fairway. Like that's sick. That's so sick. And where else do you have that? Like nowhere. Second hole, you have a centerline bunker right where you want to land it. I mean, like Ashton, you were geeking out the second we got to the second hole. You were like, dude, I love centerline bunkers. Here they are, and it was right there. So yeah, I Keller was just great. I can't even think of more than everybody else has said, but it definitely was 1A for me. And I mean, Mark and all that staff, like they were just awesome. They couldn't have been any cooler, for sure.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
what
it's not.
sorry,
Go ahead.
well, one last thing I'll add too. That like this is meant to be like like a hipster with like by saying this, but I think the other thing too that I thought about as we walked off is, I mean, I'm pro rollback for the pros, but I think that place there were just a few times. I think the whole five, the pin was all the way on the front. We all like our only goal was to like not like putt it down the hill, and I think I looked at y'all and I was like, man, like it's really sad to think that this place is 1,000, at least 1,000 yards too short to host an event now. Because like I think it's easy nowadays to be like you bring up like Marion and all these places like okay, sure, but I think like what a lot of I think those of us who like love golf and have followed golf historically is this, it's these golf courses like that are like a community center, right? Like, don't tell me that Keller wasn't chosen for the St. Paul Open because, like, it clearly was a hub in a back in 1940 and 50 and 60, right? But it's also just like, man, like it would be so great. Like, I mean, again, like I'm curious, Mason, your take on we call it, TPC Sod Farm, like that place, like whatever. But like, there's not a lot. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of like history and culture. It just kind of feels like it's a super long golf course, so therefore it can host the pros. Or I'm like, man, it would be really cool to see these guys hitting their drives, 255 and to kind of navigate the quirk of Keller. It's everything they hate, right? These guys hate centerline bunkers. They hate centerline trees. Like there's so much of Keller that like these modern tour pros despise about the modern game. And I was like, I don't know. It's just one of those places where it was kind of the first time I walked off and I was like, it would kind of be fun to watch like the pros navigate this place if the ball went, 30% shorter. So just a random
How
take,
sick
but
would
I
it be
felt
to
that.
have like a ladies major there? That
Yeah.
would be awesome. Like that's right in their yardage wheelhouse. Like, and it would be so sick because
Yeah.
I mean, you can't even think of a better number, like in terms of how far everybody's driving it and the
Yeah.
way those holes set up. Like, make it happen, guys.
And don't tell me Mark and Co can't get those greens at like firmer and 14 and just scare the living crap out of people. So that's a weird segue, but that's just something I don't feel that way often because we don't play many courses that, had an event and lost it. But I was like, this would be fun to see the best in the world sort of navigate this with, technology rolled way the F back. So
For sure. Yeah, and I think listening to you guys talk about it, it's just awesome that I feel like what you guys are describing is like what a lot of people call Minnesota nice. It's just like a very Midwest culture that just we have, that just we are welcoming. We're really, obviously there's bad apples everywhere and there's apathetic people places, Ashton, but like on the whole, like we're very proud, what like I feel like a lot of the Midwest, we're flyover country for a lot of the for like most of the country. And so, and then even then Minneapolis, St. Paul, we're like in Chicago's shadow. And so we're very proud and like happy when people are here and we want to welcome them. And so it's awesome that you guys got to experience it. One question I had for all of you about Keller, when I was just going on about how much I love it, I didn't mention like every hole is different, like truly every hole is different. I'm curious, we can just do a rapid fire. What's your guys' favorite hole out there? I don't think there's a wrong answer, by the way. Like there's a case for every hole, but curious what your guys' were.
18 by far. 18 by far.
Wow.
And the reason I pick 18 is because when you get to that green, that view from that green is spectacular. It is such a good finishing hole. Like, I mean, it's not the most overly challenging hole. It's right there in front of you. Slight uphill just a little bit, but it was just a really good way to end such a great round of golf. 18 by far for me. What about you, Pax?
I'll give you 2. Mine are 12 and 13, back to back. I think for me, like 12, I think that was the first time that I risked my life filming a golf shot from Ashton. You were back in the at the tips, and I think you had to like trek back there too. But I stayed on our tee box, ducking my head, filming your shot or filming your swing. And I think that was like the start of me like risking either my life or my camera on golf shots. But the hole, I really liked the hole. Like, I don't know, like the flow between 12 and 13 is really cool because like it kind of goes down into in a valley, if I'm not mistaken, and it's kind of quirky and like if you don't play that course that often, you don't really understand where to go. I thought that was pretty cool. And 13, I really enjoyed the nature, the hike from the tee box to the green. I think you and me, Troy, we took like a little trail, kind of like around the lake. I thought that was really cool. But I think these guys know, like I love target golf, and 13 is a very targeted golf shot that you need, kind of just over the water. But yeah, for me, definitely 12 and 13.
I'd say 17. I thought 17 was just really cool. Like I really liked the drive, and then I just thought the approach shot was rad. Like having that tree there, and then the green was also really interesting. Ashton, were you in the bunker or were you left of the bunker that's left side of the green? I can't remember.
I was left, and I hit like a pretty saucy flop, and then made the putt
Yeah.
par, which kept the match rolling.
Yeah, because that's what kept our match alive. And I think
Yeah.
that was the cool thing about the back nine was like the whole layout was like super good for match play. But that's definitely the hole that like I just very distinctively remember everything about it. And I mean, I thought 4 was super unique. Like it was quirky and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I have a thing for trees in the middle of where I'm hitting a ball. But it's just like where else do you get that? But definitely 17 was probably my favorite hole.
What do you got, Ashton? You're thinking hard. I can see it. You're thinking hard.
Well, I realized that I got earlier when I made mention of a hole, I got it wrong because 10 is a par 5, but I was actually thinking about 12, I think, when I mentioned that earlier with the nature preserve behind. I mean, I think that like I'll give 2 answers. Like I agree with Pax. I think that like when you find like moments of like being like surprised on a golf course, it's really fun. And when we finished 12 and I walked off the green and we walked up and I turned and looked to my left and I was like, wait, we're hitting up there? I'm like, wait, that's the next hole? Like I was like genuinely excited and definitely afraid to like hit that shot. But that was like the moment of joy. I honestly think though the answer might be 11 for me to pick something different because I love when you kind of like see a hole. It's like for those of you who played Pasatiempo, it's like when you like drive in and you see number 2 and you're like, whoa, like I'm going to be hitting that shot in like an hour. I think it's awesome because we kept walking past number 11 and I was like, I don't know what hole this actually is, and you notice how like thoughtfully the bunkering is. And then there's this like gigantic American flag. And there's just something proper about, we're playing 9 holes, we're on our trip, we're going, and you're hitting this tee shot directly at the clubhouse. And there's this gigantic flag. And honestly, like outside of the green complex, like it's not the most like interesting hole. But I think that like the green complex is really interesting. The bunkering's interesting. And I sort of love when there's a hole where I said there's like, when you're not playing yet and there's like building anticipation. I really enjoy that. So I think that if you think about it though, I think that like the 10, 11, 12, 13 stretch is just like really, really, really good. Yeah. And then I think I'm curious, Mason, as someone who plays there a lot, how do you feel about 9? Just because it's like I think like Mark told us, he's like, everything is out in front of you except for number 9. So I'm just curious, is like, because it's different, like because you play there a lot, do you like that or dislike that?
I like it. I think playing there, blind shots only blind once. So, playing there a lot, I just know my line every single time. But it is like I said, like literally every hole is different. And so like for that hole, that's kind of what makes 9 unique. You have a blind tee shot, you're just going like straight up this hill. So yeah, no, it's awesome. And I'm glad you guys loved it. So I really like 8. A lot of it's visual. I just think the way the bunkers frame the fairway, it's really beautiful. And then I love just like the fall off on the left. So like if you miss left, you're just like, I don't know where the pin was for you guys, but like if it's front left, yeah, it's exciting. But yeah, like I said, I could legitimately make a case for every hole. Like you mentioned the centerline bunker on 2. The centerline bunker is great because it's like you go left and you're up top and you can see the green, but that's a lot of risk. You play right, you're down low, blind shot into the green. Yeah, I feel like every hole just has these swinging doors, sliding doors moments, and yeah, it's awesome.
Even 1 was sick. Like 1 was a cool starting hole, and like Ashton, you played it all the way back, and like that tee box looked sick.
I looked at Pax, and I kind of I've not taken a swing on this whole trip yet. And I look at Pax, and I was like, it's a different tee shot from here. Like this is asking a different question than the white tee box. It just is.
Yeah, that one was cool too, because like I think it was a trek to get to the tee box as well. Like you have to like, I think you went down and back behind the parking lot, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like the tee box on 12. What he said, you risked your life. It's the same, like the kind of like the little hike back for the back tees.
Yeah, and that tee shot too for you just looked like super, at least for me, like intimidating.
Oh, as someone who like hits a cut, I was like, oh, so there's the driving range.
Yeah,
get that out of your mind. Like, okay, like let's hit this tee shot. But then it's like low key drivable. Like I had no idea. Like I mean, maybe not drivable, but I'm sure for the AMs it is, because like I had a good drive and I was like, I have like 46 yards to this pin. And then also too, not to dork out even more, but I think Troy and I both, I have 46 yards and I hit this little like, this little like chip, and all I heard was, I was like, oh my God, like this ball just like thumped off of like a pitch. I'm like, we're in for a treat. Like when wedges are thumping, not even chip shots, but I'm like, holy cow, what is this conditioning when you've got 46 yard shots that are like slamming into the green? Like this is exciting.
Yeah.
Well, and like Mason, Keller played firmer than Braemar did for us.
Yeah.
Like
and that's typical.
It was wild.
Yeah. And I have no idea how they keep it so firm up there. Truly. I think it helps. I mean, you guys went there. I think it helps that it's all perched up on a hill. Like when you pull into the parking lot, you're like weaving up this hill.
Yeah.
So I got to imagine that helps it a lot. But yeah, it's always very firm out there.
You asked Mark, it's a 13-inch roots, baby. It's a 007 bent.
007.
That's what Mark told us. He goes, it's thumping because of the 007 bent 13-inch roots. And I was like, all right, well, bring that on over to the West Coast. We need that thump. But I think the funniest thing is when we asked Mark, we go, hey, so, we're from the West Coast. All of these shelters that you have throughout the course, is that for like thunderstorms or is it for like heavy rain? And he goes, no, back in the day, they just thought it looked fucking cool and we just threw them out. They just threw them out there. There's no purpose for them. They're just there. And we were like, oh, okay. It was probably my favorite thing that Mark said to us the entire time. I thought he was going to have some great answer for it, and he was just like, no, they just built those because they thought it was cool. There's no purpose for them. And I was like, oh, okay. So I had to ask you, have you ever used a shelter? Have you been out there and inclement weather happens and you've had to shelter yourself?
Not Keller, but yes, I've used. I don't know if they were built as thunderstorm shelters, but I promise you that's what as they function right now. Yeah, in Midwest style, plenty of times caught out on a course in a thunderstorm, and you just sitting there and wait it out. So, yeah, no fun.
So we've already had you on for 50 minutes. So I don't want to,
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So big one that I want to get into is Joskatown.
I'll just cut you right there. Chaska. We'll just get out in front of it again. Chaska.
I was corrected about 500 times and I still can't get it right. So
will you apologize? That's what people want to know.
I will never apologize. That's my West Coast bias, and that's just how I'm going to pronounce it. I'm never going to get it right.
What does that mean? That's a bunch of pseudoscience. Like, we all apologize on the West Coast?
No, I'm talking about I'm never going to get it right.
Oh, okay.
It's just never going to happen. This is not.
Okay. I thought you were implying that we don't apologize.
I needed to say something, so I didn't have like my own people coming after me for not saying something.
So I'll just call it the town from now on. So playing the town.
That's Oakland, Chris. That's Oakland.
I think this is the course we had the most mixed thoughts walking off of. I don't think any of us had the same views on this course than the next. I think everybody had their own thoughts on this. It was by far my least favorite of all the courses we played. Mainly for me, and Pax liked it for this reason. He likes he likes to know exactly what shots he needs to hit. For me, I can't stand water features. I hate water features on golf courses, and they had water on almost every single freaking hole on that golf course. And multiple water features on some holes. Like, you had to deal with water off the tee, and then you had to deal with water on your second shot, and then you might have even had water next to the green that you had to deal with there as well. So you were kind of like just dodging balls going into water. And then the trees on the side, very encroaching on that golf course. Not a lot of room if you are missing it into rough there as well. I mean, they had the rough, they didn't have it dialed up yet for the AM that they're going to be having out there. So the rough was playing like fairway. It was not slowing your ball down. If you were going into the rough, you were losing a ball because it was just going to continue into the trees and it was going to disappear into the abyss. I will also say I was a little saucy because I probably played the worst I played throughout the entire weekend. And again, we try not to be biased on it, but it was one of those things. I lost 8 balls. Just going to be blatant there. I mean, it was, I got to the point where I had to start taking balls out of Pax's bag because I ran out of golf balls. I don't remember the last time I've been on a golf course where, let alone I've lost 2 balls, where I've lost every single ball in my bag. Like, I literally searched through every pocket to try to find golf balls at one point. Like, it was rough for me. So I kind of want to know what your take is on the town.
How do I say this? I like it, but it's also like not my favorite. Like, I am not shocked that this was a divisive course. I think for you guys, it was probably important to play, given it is hosting a US AM. It'll provide some like context. Like 2006, like when Billy Horschel shot 60 out there, it's kind of insane because like I've played it a couple times, and you're just like, I just don't see 60 out there at all. I will say, I think the front 9 collectively is a lot better than the back 9. Personally, I really liked like the 1, 2, 3 stretch. I know 3 is kind of a divisive hole. I'm sure that was a divisive hole amongst you guys, but personally, I really like it. And then, I mean, I'll go out on a limb. I think 11 might. I mean, we might have to nominate that for like the worst hole in the state. That hole stinks. But yeah, it's like an important piece to Minnesota golf, just being, close to Hazeltine. You referenced the loop earlier. I personally haven't been out there yet. I really want to. It just kind of feels like it feels kind of holds like an important place in Minnesota golf. So
It's kind of like in the same aspect of Stone Ridge. It different designs, different courses completely, but they hold a value to the public golf scene in Minnesota because they are their own entity. Where Braemar and Keller have very similar aspects to it that you can kind of compare the two back and forth. Where I know Chaskatown, I am gonna butcher this the rest of this podcast, and Stone Ridge are completely different than some of the other stuff that we saw while we were in town. And I think that gives it a lot of value. And it was a tough test. And the conditions were really good too. I'm not gonna. It was on par with Braemar and with Keller when it came to condition wise. It was running very pure. Greens were in fantastic shape. One, I think we'll all agree, the way they mowed the lines that day, we couldn't tell where rough and fairway started and ended. We thought the fairway went all the way down to the bottom of the hill because they had it mowed in such a way that the color of the fairway and the color of the rough matched each other, so you couldn't tell that was rough on the right-hand side. So we all played it dead down the middle, like on the edge of the hill before it goes to the right.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, this isn't fairway. We're actually in the rough. And so that was a little weird starting off on one for us. But second shot in, one was actually a really good hole now that you know that. But that was kind of a mind fuck for us because we could not tell what was going on one when we were teeing off there.
Sure. And I'll stand up for Chaska too in this regard. I think what they do is really cool. So if you are a Chaska resident, I think it's only like $50 to play. So like I would totally do that if I lived out there. I don't know where you're gonna get a course that hard for $50. But for me, it's like an hour drive out there. And then also this place will always hold a special place in my heart for just a fun round I played out there. I don't know if I'll spare the pod. I will not talk about it, but it just has a special place in my heart. So I acknowledge that full stop as well.
All right, Pax, you loved this course. I think of all of us, Pax was the one that was like, this is it.
I'll just say I played some of the best golf and some of the worst golf there. So I was like, I was like 2 under.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was 2 under through like maybe five or six. And it kind of went downhill from there a little bit. Well, I started to like level off and then I tailed off. But the first time was, I think I was asking Big, like, hey, how far is that bunker on the left? I don't know what happened, but you said 200. I thought 200. I think I landed like maybe a foot over. There's a creek that separates like the fairway, the two fairways.
I think it's 5. It's the hole we called Bay Hill.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just let it get to me the entire round. And then the second time was there were these two teenagers that kind of came up to us. I think it was the second par 5, I want to say. Okay, no, it was the first par 5 on 7. These two teenagers came up to us and were so excited. They were like, hey, what are you guys filming over there? Are you guys YouTubers? We were like, yeah. Or Ashton was like, yeah. And mid-sentence, mid-conversation, I hoselled one to the right, maybe like 50 yards down the fairway. Ashton kept the conversation going. I don't know what else was said, but that was kind of when it all went
Pax just like
downhill.
quietly puts his club back in the bag and then walks over to the bushes to go find his ball. And the kid in like a very Minnesota accent's like, "Cool, I'll check you out." I'm not going to do the accent to offend Minnesota people from Minnesota, but yeah, it's like as he's asking like what we are so he can follow us, Pax just like hosel shanks one into the bushes. Just like, cool. This is awesome.
And I think your reaction was like, "Oh, that was sick." And you were like, "I got that on video." It's like, "Oh, great,
I mean, it wasn't
great."
like hosel adjacent. I mean, you made like it was like
Oh no,
directly.
it was It was right. It was right there.
Yeah.
Didn't miss anything.
That hole's crazy because the starter, I think he was a starter. Some employee who, it's gonna sound weird. We were in the bathroom at the same time. He was like, "Yeah, they're turning that into a par 4 for the AM." I was like, "Oh my god!" Like I hit like the drive of my life, and then had like a 5-iron in, and I fanned it into the crap and made like a 6. Yeah. I was like, that is a par 4 is like a demanding, like, I guess that's my problem with it is like, I think Troy and I were debating like which is harder, like Stone Ridge or Chaska. Now I'm nervous.
Chaska.
And to me, like, at least when I play golf, I thought Chaska was like far harder because it was much more of like, you must do this. Like that hole is like, you need to move the ball to the right or else you are just going to be like extremely uncomfortable. But that hole is a par 4 is going to be banana land.
Yeah, that's gonna be crazy. But yeah, Terra Point Big. I don't know. There was something about Chaska, that seemed very familiar to me. I think a lot of the courses up here, at least the course that I'm really close to, Hawks Prairie, it is very much that. It's like target golf. You have to kind of there's a bunch of water kind of everywhere. I think mostly there's 2 courses over here, the Woodlands, there's mostly water, but it just seemed very familiar to me. And I think that's kind of why I liked it going into the round. Yeah. Towards the end, I think Ashton said it best, was like, or maybe you, Troy, said this best, but it was like, yeah, our legs are dead tired. Like we've played golf every single day. At least me, Big, and Troy, like I think it was like, can't remember, maybe it was 14 or 15. Each of us just like missed right into this pond. We were just like, oh, yep, there's one. Oh, there's Big. Oh, there's Pax. Yep, that sounds about right.
They were all just like uncompetitive fans. It was just the embodiment of like arm swing, like 220 yard like poofy balls that just go directly into like the what is it, like,
I don't even know
the tall grass.
Yeah, it's
like, we're
it
done.
was rough.
This has been a fun trip. We're cooked.
Yeah,
let's go to the Twins game.
Oh yeah, that's true. But yeah, I think for that course, like, is very familiar to me. I wish I would have played better. Definitely not have hoselled something right in front of a very
future fan,
kind of enthusiastic, a future fan. If you're watching, don't know who you are, look us up. Give us a follow, subscribe. Yeah, there's another course that just really takes care of its community. I think coming off of 18 is kind of down in that little quarry or little marsh area, and you drive up and you kind of see the rest of the course. And I just remember the driving range being kind of full and packed, and our conversation with the general manager was really cool. And just another course where they take care of their people, take care of their golfers, and it's just really cool.
All right, Ashton, you were spicy like I was. Let's hear your take.
Yeah, no, I'll keep it mellow. I'll let you kind of go off, but go off. I think you nailed it, Mason. I think that if I lived near that community, it's almost like I would have no choice but to play it. Right? It's like, oh my God, if this is $50 and it's 10 minutes from the house, like, no doubt. It's just a stylistic thing. Like, that's not the kind of golf that I like to play. Like, I don't like to play golf where if I'm a little bit off, even as a low single digit, it's like, to your point, Big, it's like just losing balls left and right. I think the other thing too, though, that I think that's something I don't think about much because I playing here is mainly playing POA. I think the other thing it made me appreciate is that like if I want to, I don't know. I mean, I don't really have like aspirations of like competing at all outside of like California, but like I think what was kind of jarring for me was like I had putted really, really well at Keller and at Stone Ridge, and I putted so bad there because the grass was different. Or I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but like the way it just like looked and felt and played, just like it felt super different. Um, but yeah, it was just kind of this weird combination of like growing up, like played a lot of like Florida golf on vacation, like 18. I don't know that it's like a bad hole because there's something that's kind of insane about like looking out across all this like marshy grass and being like squinting and being like, is that hole like 750 yards away? This kind of crescent moon hole. There was just a lot of kind of like quirky holes, and quirky isn't bad. It's just not my kind of golf. Where I think that Stone Ridge is hard. Like I guess Stone Ridge you can play with one ball and shoot 120, which I don't know if that's better. Like I don't know, but yeah, I just the way to put it is it's not my kind of golf. But I think that like to everything we're saying, like it has all of the components of. I just think that it's like an objectively like it's a much less friendly golf course, and I mean that by like the style of golf, not the people. But yeah, it's just not the kind of golf that I like to play. And to your point, Mason, I think that like in the same way that you were like, there's not a bad hole, like talking about Keller, it's hard to pick your favorite. You can't really isolate one that's bad. Like I think there's some like bad holes out there. Like I mean, like you said, like
Agree.
11 is like terrible. The par five where you basically like hammer it at, like you have to hit it like towards like the play set that's got water up there. Like
I can't remember the number, but I know what you're talking about.
yeah, like I don't know. I just kind of like
Are you
I
talking
think
about
Troy
the
like
split fairway one?
yeah, or like you have to hit like
Yeah.
I had like three wood, and I'm just kind of like
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think there's a couple holes out there that are just I don't know. So just not my cup of tea. But to your point, Mason, if I lived within 15 minutes of there, I think I'd find myself there a lot, especially with like elite practice facility. To everything we said, growing golfers, but I will say if you're like a junior golfer and you can navigate your way around there, like I think you're probably ready to. Like it's an iron sharpens iron kind of course. You're gonna know where it's going. You're gonna chip and putt well. Low key, like very small greens. Also, like I feel like I missed so many greens, and I was like, well, they're not big, right? Pretty small greens. Just a very exacting test of golf, but one that's incredibly different from Stone Ridge. Like both hard, but in extremely different ways. And ironically, Troy liked the Tresca difficulty, and I liked the Stone Ridge difficulty. But like, again, one's not right or wrong. It's just like it's a different stylistically in golf course.
All right, Troy. What do you got? What do you got for the town?
So I played terrible that day. I think to like Ashton's point about the fact that I liked it more than Stone Ridge, I think it just made more sense to me. That was the biggest difference. I would so like 11. I completely agree with everybody. I didn't think it was a great hole, and I think Ashton, you and I talked about it later that night. Like for context, basically, I mean, I felt like it was a pretty wide open fairway to where you were driving it, but then you had water at like 300 yards from we were playing the Blues, and then that water basically like it was pretty much a forced carry from that 300-yard point to the green. And I mean, I think we had like a middle pin, and it was still like a $180 to the pin. And then you have this giant oak tree on the right. And so like Ashton made a perfect point. He's like, okay, so if Liz was to come out here and play this course, like she cannot play that hole. Like there's basically no way for her to play that. She can barely, she can hit her driver. Ashton, what can Liz hit her driver? 100 yards, 150 yards,
Like she'd basically have to tee up on the other side of the oak tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also too, I tend to think this is another sign of a maybe not a bad golf course, of a bad hole. I talk about this with JD a lot. I don't think that a golf hole should be easier from the back tee. I think that hole is easier from the back tee. because like for me, I hit driver and shouldn't have, and hit it all the way next to the oak tree, literally pitched sideways and still had 6 or 7 iron in. With driver, you just hit driver or 3-wood down there. It probably just naturally moves to the left. And like, I think the good architecture needs to factor in all the tees, right? I think that hole from the back tees, like for the AMs, they'll hit a 2 iron and it's like an absolute no brainer. But I think that hole is actually easier the farther you play it back.
Yeah. And I think my thing with, I like the front 9 a lot better than the back 9. Again, I like the back 9 made sense to me, but my thing with Chaskatown was that I felt like if I went back and played it, I would play it way better and I'd have way more fun because I knew what we were looking at. Like that is a place that going into it blind, I think was really hard. That just took that level of difficulty way higher. Whereas, you know, now that I know what I'm kind of looking at and the more you would play it, I think you would just figure out your way to get around it. Yeah, I mean, I mean, I would be third for me. Like it was above Stone Ridge. I just understood the golf course. Like it made sense. I agree. Like I understand big, like you didn't like it because there was a lot of water. Like I didn't hate that about it. To me, like it felt like it made me have to play a little bit more cautious, you know, on those back 9 holes. But yeah, it was a good test of golf. Like to your point about playing it once a month, I think that's probably more realistic. Yeah, if I lived there, I'd play it all the time. But it was a good course. It'll be really cool to watch the AMs go out there and play that place. Like that will be super sick to see those guys navigate their way around there, and especially like they had it kind of tricked up. Like I can't wait to see how hard they make that place because they're going to make it really freaking hard. You know, it's not going to be easy at all.
He was telling us 7 inches to a total foot is going to be the rough size. So imagine one where you have
like
that
Torrey.
sliver, dude. You have that sliver of fairway up on top of the hill.
Yeah,
a foot long rough all the way down the hill on the right. That hole isn't hard, but that makes it impossible if you're in foot long rough over on the right hand side. Like that opening hole just got 5 times tougher.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see, and I'm definitely going to be paying close attention to the scoreboard when the AMs get out there.
I also would be curious if that was like our first or second course of the trip, what we would all think about it. Because again, like basically by the time we got to like the 3rd hole, you could just tell we were all just tired. And then once we were on the back 9, which was even harder, like we were just gassed. Like I don't think anybody got their back to the target. I don't think anybody got like 30 degrees to the target. Like we were just lifting our arms.
I think it was number 12. I actually think like after we're all like, you know, fuck this hole. And then we get up and I think I like, you know, stupidly walk back, you know, to my tee. And then I just like absolutely like lay the sod over a 6 iron in the water. And I'm just like, okay, like I'm like already fantasizing about watching like Byron Buxton and having a hot dog, or not a hot dog, but I'm just like, okay, like I just chunked it in the water. Like let's get in the car. Let's go to Chick-fil-A.
Well,
especially like with the Twins game that night, like we were looking forward to that. So it's like, can we just like
Just
fast forward?
Just relaxing.
So, I also don't think that the night before helped with that either. So we're gonna kind of lean into that. We went to the Handsome Hog, one of Mason's go-to spots in St. Paul, and I'm gonna say right now, so I'll let Ashton say what he said when we were there, which is a massive props to the Handsome Hog. Ashton might not remember, but
no, I do. All the cocktails had in it. No, it's like maybe the best ribs I've ever had, which is.
And he's the guy that grew up in Atlanta in the South. So
like California barbecue is a fucking disgrace. Like 4505 in San Francisco, if you like that place, like you're an idiot. Like you're very stupid if you think that place is good. But those ribs were insane.
The food immaculate. I'm also going to say that our boy Pax fell in love. There was an absolute love affair. It blossomed from the minute we walked in, sat at the bar, met our man Nate. You could just see the heart emojis just floating out of Pax's head. Just fell in love with Nate. One of the coolest bartenders, but a story I don't
great
think
drinks,
But a story I'll tell you, Mason, kind of crazy. So I don't know if you go there frequently enough to know Nate.
Don't.
But bartender out there, or he was a late night
Don't
bartender.
know the most handsome man in the entire world.
Possibly self-proclaimed.
The handsome hog.
Yeah, he is the handsome hog. But Nate, there was a bottle up on the whiskey shelf, and he comes around the corner, and we go, "Hey, what's up with that bottle?" And we knew it's our boy Chris Hussey. He is a winemaker in California, but the company that owns his winery also owns a distillery. And so one of their rye bottles was sitting up on the shelf, and Hussey is actually on the bottle. Our buddy his picture is actually on that bottle. So we bring it up to Nate, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I actually went out to Vallejo, went to their facility, met your buddy Chris Hussey during a tasting." It was just wild, like
small world.
To just go into that restaurant, and then he had a barrel pick whiskey from their distillery, only at Handsome Hog. Like, we'll never have that whiskey anywhere else. They had a barrel pick just for Handsome Hog, and he made us probably the most incredible cocktail. It literally tasted like cheesecake. Mm-hmm. It was by far the most incredible whiskey sour I've ever had in my entire life. But props to you. I remember you actually recommending that, and then I did not write it down and forgot about it. And Ashton was just like, "Look, we can't find anywhere to eat. We're going to drive back to St. Paul. This is the only place we can find that's open late that'll serve alcohol." We were all done with like ordering food to go because we couldn't find anywhere in Minneapolis open past 8 o'clock. And all of our rounds were like ending past 8. So it was super tough. But by far, the best stumble upon, recommended by you, place that we could have ever been. Handsome Hog was just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, glad you guys loved it. Ashton, we do not have good barbecue here. That place is like the only place that has good barbecue. Yeah, I love it. My wife does not like barbecue or liquor from the brown color spectrum, so we don't go there a lot. But I do very much enjoy that place a lot. So happy you guys enjoyed it. And made it over to sleepy St. Paul.
You know what? I think we all came to the conclusion, because, one thing that we talked about after we left Keller is, we're going to start doing a travel series for our Ryder Cup style tournament next year. And we were going to do it in Colorado. Now we're leaning very much to be coming back to St. Paul and doing it at Keller.
Let's go.
And then we also want to hold our banquet at Handsome Hog.
Oh my gosh. Just a double threat. That's amazing. Yeah. There's a saying. I debated whether or not I was going to say this on this pod. For context, I live in St. Paul. I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. There's a saying around the Twin Cities that you date Minneapolis and you marry St. Paul, basically meaning like you spend your like youth and fun and just, do your hoodlum things you want to do in Minneapolis. So there's, all sorts of trouble you can get into over there. But St. Paul is like, settle down with the family, but there's still very nice restaurants, a lot of stuff to do. But it is, and I will admit, a sleepier town, which I tend to enjoy. So yeah,
I think we definitely enjoyed St. Paul for the time that we spent there. that leading into the time we were staying next to Lake Harriet, which you explained. You were like, I know you're not from here, and you booked your Airbnb just not knowing a whole lot, but that area is where the Floyd stuff went down, and it was an experience. I'll say that the downtown Minneapolis seemed like a very lawless town at this moment.
I can't attest for downtown Minneapolis. I do not frequent there enough. Do you guys go to the North Loop at all? Maybe I should have thrown that out there. Oh, that's the hotness, just north of downtown or northeast. But yeah, downtown Minneapolis can be tough right now. I know. Try not to pay attention to the news too much. It is kind of coming back as well. A lot just with COVID and a lot of the George Floyd stuff, like a lot of downtown cleared out. But it is kind of coming back, I would say probably in the last 6 months. So stay tuned. Hopefully.
Well, Mason, like what's the area that we stayed called, like specifically?
Uptown.
Okay. Yeah, I felt like Uptown was lawless. I actually kind of felt like downtown when we went to the game was like super nice.
You're right.
Yeah. So where this Twin Stadium is, that's like on the edge of the warehouse district, which is the North Loop. So
okay,
yeah, it's a very nice area up there.
Yeah, like compared to going to downtown LA, like it was prime, man.
No, it was. I would say definitely that. You know, where we were at Uptown. It felt like certain parts of Portland. I felt like I was very at home in Uptown.
It was mainly just the Walgreens thing. I don't think it was the whole place. It was just the Walgreens Chris and I went to pick up. You know, you're on a content trip and you have to pick up batteries and bug spray.
The bug.
But yeah, there were some characters. Mainly just like I think the biggest thing was there was a guy who like the line was super long and he put his like toilet paper down and walked away and then comes back and is like, that's my spot. It's like, I mean, like, what are you talking about? Like when you leave line, it's not your spot. Like your toilet paper doesn't save your spot. Like it was like, we did not know what was going on in there.
Yeah, we met some late, I would say all of our encounters that were super weird were always late night. Like the first night we were there after we picked up Ashton at the airport.
Police sting. We saw a police
For
sting.
context, this is at 10:30 though.
Like, yeah, this is at like 10:30. Yeah. We're leaving the Wendy's drive-thru again because we couldn't find any late night food. So picked up some
getting
good old
Sprites at 11 p.m.
Yeah, spent like $40 at Wendy's too. So
leaving Wendy's, we have to flip a U-turn, and we see this like cop just blocking the intersection, like in front for me to get out of the Wendy's. We're like, what the hell is going on here? Then he slowly creeps away, and then I can kind of get around him. We flip a U-turn, and then the next thing we know, there's like 15 cop cars in a parking lot, like all going right at this one car in this just random parking lot next to the Wendy's by the airport. And we were just like, what the hell is happening? And outside of the Twins game, that was the only cop presence we saw in Uptown or downtown the entirety of our stay there. It was that one sting of whatever was happening. But again, I'm not saying any of this towards the people that we came across. Every single person at all the coffee shops that we frequented were absolutely impeccable. All the people working at all the restaurants and places that we went to, impeccable. Like, I mean, the actual people were amazing.
Give me a rundown on the coffee and food places you guys went. You can make that as quick or as long as you want.
Obviously, Wendy's.
Well, yes. Yep. And Handsome Hog.
Coffee, we went to every single one that you recommended. So, SK.
A big SK guy.
We loved SK.
I'm way in on that place.
Dogwood.
We also went to a place kind of near us. Like we fell backwards into it. You remember when we went Troy and PAX after because we had terrible coffee at breakfast and we went to that other place.
5 Watt or something.
Oh, 5 Watt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that place was rad.
Store. guitar store right next
We
to it.
just fell backwards into 5 Watt. It was great.
5 Watt's a nice little local roaster for sure.
I would say all of us probably loved SK the most. It was a cool vibe inside.
What was the other one, Big?
We went to Dogwood as well, but me and
we didn't go to Dogwood.
Me and Pax went to Dogwood before we went. Yeah, me and Pax went to Dogwood before we left for the airport.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
When we dropped you guys off, we had some time. We wrapped around.
We went to a breakfast club. The breakfast, is that what it was called? The Breakfast Club or something?
When we went to breakfast, we walked to breakfast, that place kind of sucked.
No, that place was cool.
No,
Big
after
and I
we
went
dropped
to,
you guys off, we went to this place called the Breakfast Club, and it was like 80s themed inside. And like they had like Prince videos just on rotation.
The portions were
with like
huge though.
The mass. It was a great spot. That picture that I posted on our Instagram, that is from the Breakfast Club of me in the big chair.
That was unexpected. I landed and I was like, they're having themselves a morning.
we had a good morning after we dropped the boys.
At the Breakfast Club or Handsome Hog?
Ooh.
Equal.
Yeah, I would say equal.
What?
Oh, it was
but
massive,
breakfast,
dude.
like breakfast-sized Handsome Hog portions.
Yeah, like 4 egg portion. Like it was a big boy breakfast. But that place was great. And then the pizza place we went to the first night after we picked up Ashton.
Ashton, you picked that place.
Oh, I
think that was big.
Gorgonzola.
I had it on my list.
It was like Argentine.
And Mason,
pizza.
you loved it. It was like Argentinian Mexican.
Oh, Boludo.
Yeah,
Boludo's was so good.
Yeah,
so
man. Yeah,
good.
Pax and I got the pear gorgonzola. Like holy shit, it was so good.
Yeah.
Then we got the chorizo and it was amazing, but it was like the greasiest thing I've ever eaten in my life.
Like, it was like
you held it up and it was just chorizo just like dripping off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the prosciutto and arugula. That was incredible. But all the food and drinks we had in the Twin Cities were impeccable. So good.
That makes me happy.
Pastries at SK were on the same level as the actual coffee. Fantastic. But I think the big shocker for all of us, I think outside of golf, the one thing that we fell in love with the most was the Twin Stadium. I think that stadium, man, best thing that could have ever happened to you guys was your old stadium blowing up.
Did it blow up?
No,
it collapsed. It collapsed.
Yeah, a bunch of snow.
Hey,
yeah.
I have fond memories of Joe Mauer hitting home runs into like the tarp out in like right field.
Yeah, 100%. I was telling Chris when he was out there. I have memories in the playoffs of Barry Zito just carving us up every year. So that's different memories, I guess. But so the Metrodome collapsed. That's where the current Vikings stadium is. So, yeah,
that thing's insane, man. It looks like a jagged piece of ice. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's even better inside. Maybe they originally were having issues with like concerts, just with the audio bouncing off all that glass, but I think they got it dialed in now. But yeah, Target Field, US Bank Stadium are all within like the last 10 years. So state of the art. Yeah. And Target Field, I haven't been to a ton of ballparks. I can't imagine there's too many better places to watch a game, just with like the views and everything, but I'll let you guys speak to that.
Well,
my favorite thing is the old school logo that's lit up in center field is like the best. I love the two guys like shaking hands. Like that is such an elite logo.
I would say that, so I grew up an A's fan, so I don't have much to say about nice stadiums. I mean, we've never had a good ballpark, and since I can remember, and then
I don't have a ballpark at all.
Troy he's got the ballpark, one of the ballparks of all ballparks. You can't really, baby. Yeah, you can't go wrong with Dodger Stadium. But when it comes
Dodger
to
Stadium, like kind of sucks, but it's also like really cool.
It's just like going to Wrigley. I mean, the nostalgia there, the nostalgia trumps all the bad shit. It trumps like the one thing I love about Dodger Stadium is you have about 40 feet of legroom between, because it's such an old stadium.
Depends on where you sit, though.
Well, I guess I've only sat in the lower level.
Well,
at
and
Dodger
like
Stadium.
Dodger Stadium, because I went to a game like a week and a half after we got back, and like Dodger
There's that
Stadium
picture.
now is they've done a lot of stuff to like modernize it. Now that all these other stadiums like have the kind of roam free feel, like Dodger Stadium a while ago, I don't feel like had that. So, but yeah. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
But growing up where the Giants built, I was in the Bay Area when the new Giant Stadium came along, when Pac Bell Park, and I'm always going to call it Pac Bell Park. I don't care what they call it now. It's called Pac Bell Park. When it was built, that stadium blew me away, and I hate the Giants. I absolutely hate them. But
The Giants suck.
Target Field was the first stadium outside of that stadium that gave me the same nostalgic vibe, but being new and modern. Like you did not feel that stadium has been there for that short of time. It feels like it has been modernized from being there for 100 years. And I think that's a hard thing to achieve. And they did a amazing job with Target Field coming through, giving you nostalgia, but having all the modern amenities you would need in a new ballpark.
That makes me happy. I'm glad you guys loved it. Yeah, we got a lot of cool stadiums. Probably going to the Handsome Hog. You probably drove by the soccer stadium too on night 4. It's new.
So good.
Super cool looking. And if you're into nostalgic stadiums, look it up on your own time. Where the Gophers, University of Minnesota Gophers, play basketball. It's called Williams Arena. It opened in the 20s, and it's so old school, so awesome. And the floor is like elevated 3 feet off the ground. So like people if they save a ball, they'll like go flying off the floor. It's a lot of fun.
That's kind of
anyways. There's my tangent.
Mason, you were telling me like if you have a ticket to the baseball game, you get a free metro ride or something like that on the light rail.
Yeah, I haven't been to a Twins game in a while. That used to be a deal where you could show your Twins ticket and it would get you free on the light rail, blue or green line. So
That's sick.
it's a nice little deal. Just cut down on traffic and everything. And they're currently working on another light rail line. So right now we only got 2, and they're working on one coming out kind of from the Chaska area. So
now I'm a little bummed we didn't get to go see the Lynx play, because those girls are number 1 in the WNBA. I mean, they're absolutely destroying it. They just won the in-season tournament. I mean, I think we missed out. We missed out. We definitely should have went and saw the Lynx play.
That, or I wish the Wolves would have held on like a week longer for you guys. That would have been
being in that town during a NBA Finals would have been epic.
Would have been electric for sure.
Yeah, you guys got it coming. It's coming.
I hope so. I'm a big fan of drafting Rob Dillingham. That was awesome.
Future guard that's going to change your guys' entire trajectory.
Yep.
See, I was pulling for y'all, but like Anthony Edwards, just not him, but he just makes me so angry. I know as a Georgia fan, I have it too good with our football team, but like the fact that Anthony Edwards went to the University of Georgia, and then we missed the tournament, is with Tom Crean is like an unbelievable level of incompetence. It's unbelievable.
My friends and I were talking about that. We were both so wrong about the draft. We were so bummed we got Anthony Edwards. I think the only excuse that you could pin on him is like COVID, so everything was weird. But
no, to be clear, I think it's a Tom Crean Georgia thing, not an Anthony Edwards thing. I was like, wow, we got the number 1 player in the country who's going to go 1 overall, and then it's like Georgia goes like 12 and whatever.
It's like Ben Simmons. Hopefully their careers don't go the same direction though.
No. I don't see that trajectory happening. But to end this all, I think, in conclusion for our trip out there, we absolutely loved the Twin Cities. I think the big thing is, just like every city, if you come and visit Portland, you come and visit San Francisco or LA right now, I think we're all still recovering from COVID. So we have to give a little bit of leeway for any city, any large city that you're visiting right now, because Portland's still on fire. I'll tell you that. It's still not where we need it to be. Ashton is still seeing some crazy homeless stuff going on in San Francisco, and LA is LA. Pre or post COVID, LA is LA.
It just never changes.
Troy knows. I think the conclusion is, if anybody's listening to this, please go visit the Twin Cities. Enjoy yourself a Twins game. Try to get out and see the St. Paul Saints. We were bummed we didn't get to go see them as well if you're a baseball fan. Experience the public golf. I mean, it blew us away. We had our hot takes, but one thing I think we're going to come across on all 4 courses that we played, they're all at a higher level at the price point that they're at than 90% of public golf on the West Coast. And it's just done right out there. And I think if you're a golfer and you're looking for an affordable trip with great amenities in a really welcoming city, the Twin Cities is it.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for letting me tag along the Braemar round, and I can't wait to see the content.
Yeah, and we'll let you know about our finalization about our travel Ryder Cup series next year. And I think we're leaning heavily into Minneapolis, so I think you're going to see us at Keller coming next summer. So
cool, can't wait. Looking forward to it, guys.
All right, guys. Chat later.
Thank you, boys.